So I wasn't quite sure what they were looking for when they asked me to come and speak. And so what I thought I would talk about is the classes that I teach, both fall and spring semester. And both classes are project-based classes. So I have teams of students working on projects, generally with external clients, generally with businesses. And this has been going on for about 10 years. And so there's maybe 6 to 10 projects a semester. And so there's a lot of projects that we've done over the years. What I chose for today's presentation is the 6 projects that relate to behavior change in the sustainability area where students were working on a project with a client. Sometimes it's obvious how that behavior change is to occur. Sometimes I'll have to explain it a little bit more. So let's start with the first one. We worked with Briggs & Stratton back in spring, so last year. They asked us to have a team of students critique their sustainability website. So they had a tab on their homepage for sustainability, and we're looking for best practices or what do the best sites demonstrate. And in conversations with them, well, their target audience was actually their customers, with a second target audience of employees, with maybe a third target audience of investors. And so students were left to gather, well, what are these different groups interested in? How does it get presented? As many of you know, well, you don't know this. A good website isn't text-heavy, and theirs were very text-heavy. In fact, most of their website was their annual report, which had mostly text and not much in the way of pictures. And so the recommendations that went back to them was to make this much more interactive, much more graphically oriented, much more tell a story that would engage people, much more lead people sort of along the way to, yeah, this makes sense. Here's Briggs & Stratton, big engine company, clearly facing pressure from customers, from others on what does it mean to be, sort of this big, major Milwaukee manufacturer that's grounded in the fossil fuel industry. And what does the future hold? And how do you credibly talk about sustainability when your business is about burning up large quantities of fossil fuels for no good purpose other than for people to, sort of cut their grass or, go have fun? So they were really appreciative of the recommendations that the students put together for them. The students actually did an analysis of, I don't know, a dozen or 15 other websites, some of competitors, some other just kind of best-in-class websites that fed into the final set of recommendations. So let me talk about that. So students work on the project over the course of the semester. The agreement with each of the clients is that they will then come to class at the end of the semester. The students actually do a formal report out to them, so that they have about a 15-minute window that they do a formal report out. The clients have about 15 minutes then to interact with the students, provide them feedback on the recommendations, ask them any questions, get any last answers that they can. It didn't in this case, but in some cases, the students have then been asked to come in also and do a presentation to the client or senior management team or whoever that might be. Okay, so let's go on to the next one. So maybe 2 years ago, we worked with Serve, which is a nonprofit. They sell stuff from the developing world, right? I mean, good intentions, import stuff, put it up for sale, try and create markets for artisans in the developing world that don't have access to markets. So their store was located on the far end of State Street from campus. The project for the students was, how do we get students to come into the store? We think students would be interested in what we're selling. They appear to be interested in fair trade kinds of things, but we really don't see much of a student population. So the students did some market research, tried to figure out, why people went there and why people didn't go there, and sort of the long and the short of it was they were located too far away. They didn't publicize that they were a fair trade shop. Students didn't have a reason to visit the store. They weren't even aware of what the store did. Since that time, for those of you that have followed this, I think they've moved down to Monroe Street and are making a sort of a different play on trying to engage the Monroe Street community around what they're doing. But, sort of, in this case, it's behavior change of customers. How did we better engage customers and seek to attract them into the store? Okay, next one. So this is one we're working on this semester. We're working with Kathy and Cool Choices on a number of different projects, all using this idea, how do we better engage with people through the use of social media? So whether that's marketing Cool Choices to potential clients through the use of social media, or in better engaging with people that have come through the program in the past, maintaining those relationships. And how do you use social media, or should you use social media? And if so, how do you use social media to continue that engagement over time, to continue sort of building a vibrant community, and people that are, that are continuing to participate, if not in the game, but at least participate, so emotionally and mentally in the, sort of the overall becoming more sustainable and giving them support and giving them a community to be a part of. And the thought is social media can play a role in this, but what does that mean? Does it mean setting up a Facebook site? Does it mean, tweeting, recommendations? How do you use social media, and what's the relationship between social media and the web page and email and things like that? Next one. So this was a printer. Lauterbach is a big printer over in the southeastern Wisconsin area. They're in Sussex. And they were going to do their first sustainability report. So if you're thinking about doing a sustainability report, again, some of the same questions that Briggs was asking. Who are our customers? What are they interested in? How do we reach them? What are best-in-class sustainability reports look like? What kind of information should we provide? What's the impact of this? What do we want people to do as a result of engaging with this sustainability report? So again, students spent the semester, tried to identify what were best-in-class sustainability reports, who was doing what, how were they doing it, how was it being presented, is it a PDF, is it an HTML document, is there interactivity of the document, those kinds of things, and presented that recommendation to Lauterbach at the end of the semester then. We worked with Downtown Madison on the problem that they brought to us was, there's too much litter, and it's those darn kids under 30. So how do we engage with them to change behavior? And so students worked on a Clean Downtown Madison initiative with how do you create the proper messaging? Don't litter probably isn't the proper approach, but how do you talk in language that students are likely to respond to? Maybe not students, people under 30. So young professionals and those that hang out downtown. And it was work that Downtown Madison was really, I think, that really valued. And they didn't have the resources to get it done. So this was a great project for the students to work on. Again, it's all about behavior change, right? I mean, it's how do we change the behavior of young people so they don't litter when they're downtown, because right now they are littering, and we could see the results of that or the impact of that. And so it led to a web page. It led to a number of messages that were sent out from Downtown Madison, Inc., and some signage that was trying to change behavior. And then the last one, we've been working with Yum Butter. There's a couple of companies that we've worked with for a lot of years. Springs Windows in Middleton is one, Land's End is one, Yum Butter is one. And every semester we seem to be working on a project with them. So again, a year ago they were launching these packets and it was moving from selling peanut butter in a jar or nut butters in a jar to these mobile packets. And how do you do that for a small firm? They're very young person oriented. They're very in touch with social media and the use of social media. So what does it look like to really launch a product using sort of the newest and coolest social marketing strategies? And there was guerrilla marketing and some other things that that they were looking at. So again, behavior change in this case was how do we get people to buy this brand new product in this new form using not an unlimited budget. They were budget constrained in how much they could afford to spend on the product launch and the marketing that was associated with it. So I just wanted to, I could go on and on. We like I said, we do a number of projects each semester, and they've been going on for a number of years. But there's always these kinds of things happening. If you know of potential clients for us, every semester I take on new clients. So students, your projects have to be kind of cool, right? Students, they get 15 to 20 choices at the beginning of the semester. And I ask them to give me their top 3 choices. And even in a class of 40 plus, there's always enough variability that everyone gets one of their top 3 choices. But if your project isn't showing up on at least 3 students' top 3 choices, it doesn't get done. So the students love it. There's a real benefit to the clients. It fits, I think, well within what we're talking about in that a lot of what we're doing is behavior change. And that trend seems to be getting bigger over time where there is this interest in how do we do things that better, that better engage some group of people, investors, customers, employees, potential employees, whoever that might be. So with that, that's all I have.
Well, I think I'm going to switch gears somewhat slightly on something somewhat different. This is actually just an opportunity for me to present this. I apologize. This is the first time I present this to an audience, so it could be rough in places, and it's probably more catered to a typical academic audience. But anyway, I had a visiting scholar last year from Wuhan University in China, and we were trying to develop some kind of a research collaboration together. So to preface it, all the data that I'm presenting today on our studies came from China. So it would be interesting for you to actually perhaps share some of that information with you, and also think about how it could be different within the context of the US. And I think there are also certain principles and ideas that I feel it actually cuts across different cultures. So that's kind of what I'm interested in. And most of you are probably, find it a mouthful to talk about anthropomorphism. But anyway, so I use the 2 prime examples to sort of hopefully motivate this presentation. Does relationship matter within the context of anthropomorphism and conservation behavior? And I know that I think earlier last year, some of you have presented your attempt in anthropomorphizing your, I think, communication messages. I think in one of the, I believe it's the waste reduction, I think, exercise when people print, I think, faces, I think, on the waste baskets. I think some of you presented that particular project and showed that how it is actually much more effective when people can relate to, I think, the message on a more personal level. And that's what anthropomorphism does to us, I think, from a motivational standpoint. And, I decided to choose the volleyball on the left. I hope all of you remember where that volleyball came from and what is its name. Thank you. And, well, the case of Wilson basically exemplifies the fact that there is a real human need to anthropomorphize things. And psychologists have shown that it serves multiple purposes. In the case of Wilson, of course, Tom Hanks in his Castaway was lonely on the island, and he needs somebody to talk to and to relate to, so Wilson became his confidant within that context. And we also anthropomorphize our pets on some level, and you can think about various examples. And this area of research has been probably most developed within the advertising and marketing context when you think about us to consumers' brand relationships, for example, using, the Pillsbury Doughboy and, the Michelin Snowman. I guess it communicates so much more to you than just an inanimate object. So that's the power of anthropomorphism. And of course, the other very common examples that most of us can relate to is hurricanes. The tradition of naming hurricanes becomes very significant in our ability to actually understand it and sort of like identify them individually, because I think, Hurricane 1, Hurricane 2 doesn't tell you a whole lot of things, but if you were to name them, you don't get them confused. And just another sort of like piece of information. What do you think is more effective, female names or male name hurricanes? And which one is more deadly? Any idea? Yeah, they are. Now they are. Starting in the 70s, because they decided that this is really sexist to only name them after women. But on the other hand, you see, I think even something like that actually has an unintended effect. Do you know which are more deadly, female or male named hurricanes? Why?
Because people take them less seriously.
Absolutely right. That's exactly what happens. Well, exactly. All the deadly, I think, I think there is research that shows that I think female hurricanes are much more deadly, incur much more damages, and my colleagues have gone through a whole series of experiments to show you why that is the case. So anyway, Katie has got the answer. So sorry. I hope I can actually use that to motivate why this is important. So the role of anthropomorphism is, I think the process of humanizing inanimate objects. And, how it works is, I think it is not new in our sustainability research, is because it generates greater empathy towards the environment, and it enhances our connectedness to the environment, so it makes us more conscientious about our actions on the environment. So, well, given the fact that, we have been anthropomorphizing things, then, the next question that comes out of my earlier research is, does relationship matters? Because what I have found in my previous studies is that how connected we feel towards that particular inanimate object. Well, my research was done on, of course, humans, individuals. In terms of our social distance and relationships towards different individuals, actually leads to different emotional responses, and how the intensity of our feelings towards various, I think, actions and behavior. So, I just decided to apply that towards anthropomorphism and examining the role of relationships. So, and, within the context of the environment, we decided to look at the common metaphor that has been used as Mother Earth, right? So it's in a way a sort of anthropomorphism as well. So what about the metaphor of a child? And I had a hard time finding something about the child, but you have lots of examples of Mother Earth. And so that leads us to our first study. So we decided to just sort of like test out three types of, scenario. If we anthropomorphize the environment as a person who is a stranger to us, a mother, or a child. So a simple hypothesis would be that it would be more effective if that particular anthropomorphized object has a relationship with us as opposed to a complete stranger, right? And also, we kind of feel that a child should be even more effective than a mother. So that was, I think, what we did in study 1. And yes, you can see that, this is the, we just sort of like measured conservation intentions, and sure enough, child river and mother river, in this case, is the object that we chose to anthropomorphize, engendered a greater conservation intentions on a 7-point scale than just a person river. And in this particular case, there was no significant difference between child versus mother, except that they are both significantly more effective than the person river. Okay. So the prediction that we thought about the underlying mechanism is the fact that it is the strength or the perceived because if the mother is perceived as strong, we actually feel that it's the mother's responsibility to protect us. We feel greater responsibility towards a child because it's usually thought of as weak. And we actually measured perceived strength and perceived responsibility as well. So our hypothesis 3 is that anthropomorphizing the object as a child would induce greater responsibility. So, and that was actually indeed what we found. And in addition to that, if you move on to the next slide, we also look at perceived responsibility and perceived weakness, and it shows that perceived responsibility mediates the relationship between weakness and conservation behavior, suggesting that because the river is perceived as a child, then it's perceived to be weak, and we feel greater responsibility towards protecting it, and that's the underlying mechanism that leads to the greater intention. Okay. I have a lot of slides to go through, so just feel free to. So who is more responsible for a weak child? So it led us to the next hypothesis to feel that, not only that we feel greater responsibility towards something weak, but if we were to feel more powerful, it would actually enhance our felt responsibility towards somebody who is weak. So that's our fourth hypothesis, where we actually went in to manipulate, I think, how powerful do we feel within that particular context. So you can just jump. So the manipulation is power state, whether you are a leader of a group or you are a member of a group. And these are, again, further, I think, undergraduate students who participated in that study. And indeed, that was actually what we found, because between the two different conditions, between child and mother, and when they get manipulated between powerful and powerless, it shows that, it has a multiplier effect between power state as well as, I think, the conditions that we put them under, whether we anthropomorphize the river as a child versus a mother. So, and then, we also noticed that there is a typo. I just realized that. It's really the mediating role of perceived responsibility and not because power and anthropomorphism has a moderating effect because it strengthens that relationship, and then perceived responsibility actually mediates it so that it's somewhat weaker. So perceived responsibility continues to be the partial mediator of the interaction of power state and anthropomorphism. So that's it. So to conclude, yes, relationship does matter, and that it is actually, it sort of like brings us back to the examples that we often use. Is it maybe it wasn't actually the right thing to portray the earth as the mother, because a lot of the times we think of it as something that is strong, resilient, and we feel less likely to feel that it needs our protection and our consideration compared to if you think of the earth as something that is fragile. Maybe it's not the metaphor that matters, but rather, is to actually have, I think, information and communication that would actually remind you that the earth is fragile as opposed to something that provides for us. So, maybe there is a way to actually apply it within a practical scenario to see that, whether it actually reminds us to be more mindful in terms of our consumption behavior and to be more mindful in terms of, conservation and various other things. I just want to throw in one more thing that I have not had the chance to add is I did study too in the U.S. as well, using a sample of American students here in Madison. And what I found was interesting was that perspectives of that relationship actually matters. Because in the case of China, when she did study too, her samples were MBA students. And I think many of them actually have young children. So that generated a stronger response from the respondents towards the child than towards the mother. But in the sample that I drew from Madison, they are college undergrads. And what I found was that the response towards protecting the mother was stronger than the child because most of them don't have kids. So it actually proves that relationship does matter, and it also matters to whom is the target audience. But needless to say, it worked. So that's kind of cool. And I'm interested in finding out, any suggestions because I've just been, this research has just been accepted for a conference paper. And the reviewers' comments were like, oh yeah, this is pretty cool results, but the hypotheses are not that surprising. And it's not clear how sustainable it is. So I would like to prove them wrong. Thank you. So that's really it.
Good morning, and thanks for having us UW-Madison folks here today. As Kathy mentioned, I'm in our College of Engineering, but I'm also in our Office of Sustainability. So I think between Tom and Nancy and I, we kind of really wrap around this whole UW picture pretty good, even though there's a ton more people, including Marcus, doing UW sustainability work on our campus. So I just wanted to kind of just start by just saying that sustainability to me is kind of this journey that we're all on, and kind of like 20 years ago in my email tag I had happiness is a journey, not a destination. And I think for us looking at UW-Madison, we're always on this journey of doing better, and Badgers can always do better. So I kind of want to tell you a little bit about what we're doing as an approach from our Office of Sustainability and how we're kind of trying to do better. So first of all, who are we? I'm not sure of everybody yet because this is only my second meeting, and I know a couple of you, but not everyone. But just kind of some numbers here. UW-Madison's been around since 1948. It's 936 acres right here that goes all the way out to Picnic Point, the lake shore. But overall, it's about 13,000 acres if you include all the ag research stations and different research farms that we have up north. We've got $2.85 billion in budget, but that's going to be cut just a little bit. That's going to hurt a lot of us, especially our friends in the energy and scientist arena, which is really, really shocking. But our research ranking, what this means, third, is that we're competing with the top schools in the nation for research dollars. So when you think of Harvard's, the Stanfords, the Berkeleys, UW-Madison ranks third, and this is, we're anywhere from 1 to 3 every year. We've got 13 schools and colleges, 21,000 faculty and staff, and 14,000 living alumni. Alumni in here? Fantastic. Okay, so our tuition and fees here, $10,000 for undergrad residents, $26,000 if you're out of state. It's still a great bargain. We're, I think, the third cheapest Big Ten school.
That's in-state?
In-state, yeah. Notable alumni. Some names you might recognize here. 3 in green there, Herb Cole, John Muir, Gaylord Nelson. These are all pioneers in conservation, wilderness and environmental protection. These are people that we all know really well. Notable alumni, Tom and I. I wasn't sure who else might be in the audience here, but obviously there's a few, many more. Now, who are we, the Office of Sustainability? Who knows us? A few of you. Okay, great. So here's a few of our faces. We've got basically eight of us on our leadership team. We've got Craig Benson and Farmars Vakili, our 2 co-directors, myself. Kathy Middlecamp is a researcher, a chemist, and in Environmental Studies at Nelson Institute. Darren Harris comes from the Office of Quality Improvement. Sabrina Bradshaw, College of Engineering. Amy Duell-Brockdorf is a human ecology MFA student and has been with us for a few years now. And then Jill Sakai is our communications director. But what are we doing? I want to get to the heart of what I'm talking about today. This is some things that we, as a campus, set out to do back in 2010, which was develop the We Conserve program, which would take 20% energy reduction by 2010. It was actually about 24%. We made a lot of building improvements through these actions. New buildings were coming online, but also we were taking some pretty meaty buildings that weren't going to be renovated, but had some significant energy reductions opportunities, and we put money into that in order to drive our energy footprint down. These are some other wastes that we drove out of the system. So water, CO2, diesel, trash, 9%. Really? 9%? That number to me is really striking, that we can't do better. So this is something we're working on. I'm going to show you a video at the end about that. What else are we doing? When I came to UW-Madison, I was hired to bring a green building program to our campus master plan that came out in 2005. So since 2006, we followed the LEAD program. It wasn't easy. This is a whole other hour talk about how do you get people to drink the Kool-Aid, and it took about a year. But we're there now, and we've got 8 registered, certified projects. Most of them all gold. We've got 1 platinum, 1 silver, and then we've got 6 more in the hopper right now. So all those cranes and construction projects out there on our campus right now, I just want you to know they are being done to these standards. And the silver minimum is our standard on campus. And it's pretty hard to not make silver. There are some challenges sometimes with buildings, but we always strive to do better. And I also want to just tell this group that LEED is not the starting point of sustainability. I just threw it up there because I think a lot of people want to know. But when we have this conversation with our building projects, we don't even talk about those 4 letters for a very long time in the design projects. So we can understand what is sustainability going to mean to the School of Nursing, for instance. Okay, that is much different than what it means to the new student union. And we have to really articulate and think about that design really heavily so that it matches and mirrors what we're going to give back that's going to stand up for the next 100 years. So that's just a tool at the end we track. All right, so I wanted to get to this because it's one of my favorite quotes by Winston Churchill. He said, "You can always count on Americans to do the right thing, but only after they've exhausted every other possible option." Right? So we just started doing LEED, and other companies, big Fortune 500 companies Tom works with, they've been doing this stuff for years, for decades, before there was even a program that we put GRI and labels on or LEED labels on and all these kind of things because it affected the bottom line. And they realized if we could save more and use less, we would have better revenues, right? So the triple bottom line has been playing a role in this, and now we have this term we call the triple bottom line. And we need to think about ways that we can do better on our campus. So the Office of Sustainability was born about 3 years ago. So even though stewardship has been part of our mantra through our forefathers for 100 and almost 50 years, right? Right, more than that, 100 and almost 70 years. The living model for our campus hasn't really, it's been going back and forth over many, many decades, and we're really trying to solidify this in stewardship and protecting the environment. So the Office of Sustainability came out of a task force. There were 40 people that were part of this task force that looked at different types of sustainability across our campus, what it would mean to housing, athletics, how we operate our campus, to what are we teaching good students so that they become good stewards of the environment when they graduate. And our office wanted to look at the core individual values. And we developed a model and some objectives to reach this. So what do we do at the UW? We educate, we research, and we operate. So as a 4th thing in sustainability, we need to make sure that we're communicating out what we're doing in a lot better way, in a bigger way, that people can learn from and use these behaviors. So this was a triangle that was developed with our task force. And instead of, I guess we're turning our triangle instead of the triple bottom line, we're looking at these 3 pillars of what we do. So first and foremost, we've got a campus that has to operate in order for everybody to come to work and students to study and research to take place. How is that being done in a sustainable fashion? Beyond we can serve, beyond 20% energy reduction. We got to keep going because that's the journey that we're on. Research, in order to stay in the tier 1 that we want to be, we need to be cutting edge in sustainability. And how are the funding going to continue to drive these types of cutting edge research that can help everybody else implement the things that we are finding here? And then lastly, but I guess not to say the least, is we are really here first to, number 1, educate students. So what kind of opportunities can we provide them so that they can be any major they want, but have an opportunity to learn about sustainability and bring that into their core values and carry that forth, like the Wisconsin idea. So Mythbusters, this was something that just kind of dawned on me one day. Everybody knows this show, right, Mythbusters? Okay, no? So there's these 2 guys, and they're kind of like crazy scientist types that get these questions about, is this true or not true? And this is kind of me. I'm sitting in my office, and about almost every day, at least a couple times a week, I get questions from students. I'll show you some examples. Why doesn't the UW have solar collectors on Bascom Hill that could help heat pipes under the sidewalk to melt the snow? And they want an answer. Why can't the UW use an alternative to salt for de-icing sidewalks, streets, and parking lots? That's a great question. What's the answer? So, here's some food mythbusters. Why can't the campus dining facilities offer fresh, locally grown produce year-round? I'm going to show you a case study on that. Why can't we bring our own to-go container on campus dining facilities like we bring our own coffee mug? Well, we tried this. We had 80 to-go containers go out, and they never came back. They went. Can the UW recover food from the university dining halls to meet the hunger and nutritional needs of the community? Here's a few more. Conservation. Why doesn't the UW ban water bottle sales? Other campuses are doing it. Why don't we have more geothermal under buildings and solar collectors on roofs? Why does the campus leave the lights on in the buildings all night long? Why doesn't campus allow goats to graze in the Lakeshore Nature Preserve to help eliminate invasive species? I'm serious. These are the questions I get all the time. We all get them. Any of us who work at the UW, you've had these questions, right? Am I right? Yeah, you're laughing because we could go on and entertain you with the questions. The point is that everybody wants an answer. And so I started to think about how can we continue to, you can, bring horse to water, but you can't make a drink. Give a person a fish, they can't fish. If we're not teaching students how to solve these questions themselves, then what service am I doing by just spitting out an answer? And even, they may not like the answer I give them, and they may not fully understand. It may take a dissertation to explain that answer, but they want an answer. So we're trying to give students opportunities to come figure this out. So what do? They read labels. When we all grew up, well, most of us, I think, we didn't have labels on our food, right? This came out when we were in our generation. And now I read them religiously, and I want to know not just the calories and fat anymore. I really don't care about that as much as what are the chemicals in this thing that I'm eating, and what is that? I can't even pronounce it, so therefore, is it good for me? These are the types of things that we want students to start thinking about so they can start figuring out how to answer these questions. Why do our behaviors matter? So this is part of the talk that we're trying to train students in our capstones about. We've got a population problem. It's only going to get worse. Everybody wants what we have, and in order to keep up, we're going to run out. Right? That's the bottom line. 6.25 billion other people want everything that we have. Oops, wrong way. What do we want? Well, they want iPhones. I have an iPhone. Or a smartphone. They want a nice house. Everyone wants a really nice car that runs on electricity. What does it take to get these things? It takes an awful lot of resources. And we're willing to pay for them. And we don't care where they come from. The things in these smartphones are full of conflict minerals, just like my laptop computer here. And I can't find a computer on the market that doesn't have conflict minerals in it. Where do these come from? Does anybody know? Does anyone know what a conflict mineral is? Tom, what's a conflict mineral?
So derived from probably an African country, from governments that are at war with their citizens or funding wars through the sale of minerals that are mined in the country.
Absolutely. So when you hear about women and children being killed, raped, plundered every day, they're mining this stuff so that our screen on our smartphone works. They're mining stuff that goes into all of our computers and our iPads and our iTouches and all these electronic stuff that we have. Can you only get that stuff mined in Africa? Where else does it come from? China? Well, yeah, China too. Up north Wisconsin, we have some of the richest ore deposits, but nobody wants that in their backyard. Nobody wants to mine and pay a good wage because it's expensive, because it's in our backyard. But that's the kind of stuff that we need to make all the stuff that we want. So what is thick versus thin sustainability? These are things that we talk to our students about because it's really important to understand. When you go to the store and you see Greenworks Cleaner by Clorox, what does that mean to you, Greenworks Cleaner by Clorox?
greenwashing.
It's greenwashing. It's the thin versus the thick sustainability. All natural 7-Up. I love it when I go to the store and I buy chicken. It says all natural chicken. Well, I hope it's natural. What the heck is, what is not all natural chicken? Schmicken? You know, I want to buy natural chicken. So I explained to our students that we have to be really thinking about the marketing and the behaviors that are in our marketing to make us think that if it says all natural or all green, it must be good for me. Well, I tell them, cocaine is all natural. Yes, you chemically derive it, but I wouldn't recommend you take it. King Cobra's ointment, as Dr. Sarmati would always say. So the snake venom, all natural. I wouldn't drink it. So we have to think about those things and really start being better at our consumption behaviors. And what are we reading? What does it really mean? Question something. Challenge what you see. Bamboo, here's another example. I had a large project, as Tom knows, on our campus that wanted to install bamboo floors because bamboo regenerates itself 3 feet a day. Whole forest in 10 years. Where does bamboo come from? It comes from one of these. Chug, chug, chug across the ocean. A lot of carbon involved in that bamboo. Now, if I lived in Asia, that might make sense. But I've got a lot of hardwood forests in Wisconsin that are probably maybe a better, more sustainable option. So you have to think about that. I'm not saying I don't like bamboo. I'm just saying that you have to think about the application of it and how it's going to be used. And is that the right thing to use? So what's our call to action? So on our UW, we need to address these inconsistencies and talk about how we're managing resources. Bottom line, though, we have an opportunity for 60,000 people a day, 43,000 students a year. Raise awareness, change attitudes and values, change the sustainability science. How can we incorporate this more into our everyday learning, whether you're an education major, a nursing student, an engineer, a law student, a business major? Give them opportunities and create policies and initiatives. Why are we doing so many LEED buildings now in the U.S.? Because a lot of cities have adopted this as their policy. So what is working, what is not? What have we done well at the UW? Well, we're doing better at raising awareness amongst the younger generation. They know about We Conserve. They take a Be the We pledge when they come in at SOAR. But then what? What do we need to work on? We need to evaluate if these initiatives are actually contributing to improving sustainability, or is it just eco-decoration? Are these programs just forgotten about? How can we provide education that develops a foundation for better thinking? I'm going to keep moving here. So we have a few ways that we can do this. There are different degrees. We have a new certificate that we've developed through the Office of Sustainability in concert with a lot of people on campus that are going to be teaching courses that pertain to this certificate. So you can be a major, and have any major you want, I should say, and get a sustainability certificate added to your major. And there's also an environmental studies certificate, lots of other certificates. Global Health Institute has a certificate too. It's heavily related to sustainability. All right, so all this junk that we try to compost, we have compost bins set up in our buildings now, and this is what you see if you open it up on any given day. Okay? How are we going to do better here? So we give out grants to researchers on campus, and this is one of them I wanted to show you. We wanted to look at what the food sustainability values are in UW dining halls. Remember that question? Why don't the dining halls offer more organic, local produce? Well, let's find out. What's that?
Year-round.
Year-round, right. Well, so let's assess it. Let's see what the customers' preferences are for how and where their food comes from. So, food matters. Here's the tossed salad. Are respondents willing to pay more for what they value in food? Because we all know that it's expensive to grow lettuce leaves in January in Wisconsin. Students were asked to rate whether they would or would not buy a half-pound salad if they knew it met their value priorities at various prices. So we're giving them price points. Would you pay this much? Would you pay this much? Would you pay this much? What's the result? Students are not willing to pay a significant sum more for their value priorities. What do you think is significant? Because that's a pejorative term that I threw up there just to challenge you. What's significant mean?
50 cents.
50 cents. You're right on the head. 50 cents was the first amount more. and then it went to $1, $1.50, and so on, okay? Additionally, buying organic would not be profitable for housing with any price increase. They can't sell enough organic to get the money out of it. Nobody's buying enough of that stuff. They don't choose to do it because they won't pay for it. So you can add 50 cents to the price of that salad, and they won't buy it. The survey also showed a need for more education. This is what mattered to the students. Number one, taste, nutritional value, cost, and appearance over organic, locally produced, fair wage, and other terms that didn't even make sense to them that are actually regulated in the food industry. So they're more concerned about these 4 things than anything else. We looked at what is the sweet spot for the amount of the price, the increase, that it was going to make it profitable just for local. And I'm not talking about organic, I'm just talking about local, and it was double. It was double. So if they can't get them to pay 50 cents, they're not going to pay more. All right, so debunk the funk. This is kind of the essence of what I'm focusing in on the capstone course that I teach. We're looking at different ways that students can take on challenges no matter what their major is, because they're brought in as a cohort. They're from all walks of life. And we put them on teams to challenge them. ECW has been great partners in this program because they've been able to mentor a couple of our projects. But last year, we looked at climate change in 50 years at the UW. How are we going to heat and cool our buildings in 50 years if climate change is real? All right, at Phantom Energy, Scott was talking earlier about, you know, the coffee maker left on, the computer screen, and all these things. We looked at phantom energy load in our housing dorms, students leaving TVs and games and hair dryers and all kinds of stuff on. What does that mean? Is it really significant or not? Land management. We've got a project right now looking at sustainable land management for MMSD. What's it going to take? This is a project where I get a myth-buster question all the time. Why don't we have more solar panels on the roofs? Why don't we put green roofs on the building? So from an energy standpoint, what is it going to take to get us to carbon zero if we put enough solar panels or wind turbines or what have you out there? So I've got a team working on this. I'm really excited about this project because it's going to answer a lot of those daily questions I get. And ultra-low temperature freezers. Okay. When we do experiments on our campus, stuff that's got to stay like -80 to -120 Celsius, like really super cold, 24 hours a day, those little freezers, they're using as much energy as 3 houses. That's a lot. You know how many we have on our campus? A lot. A lot of those. They're needed for science. So I'm not saying get rid of the freezers, but are they being managed? Are they being defrosted? What happens when they go down? They have to have a backup freezer. So the backup freezers are sitting empty at all times so they can put it in there in case our power plant goes down. This is the reality of all of our stuff. It's not just the UW, all of our stuff. Do you guys cloud your contacts on your phone? Where's the energy coming from the cloud? Who makes that energy? All right, last 2 things. Professor Kathy Middlecamp, Nelson Institute, our OS leadership team, she put together a research project with us to look at our food and our carbon footprint. So,
I'm here at the University of Wisconsin-Madison at Union South, where thousands of students eat thousands of meals every day. And I'm here to talk about food, in particular, the greenhouse gas emissions that accompany the different food choices that people make. When I hold a conversation
oops, oh shoot, I was just trying to get rid of that, sorry.
with my students, I say 2 things. Food affects your health, but it also affects the health of the planet. In particular, the greenhouse gas emissions that accompany food production. Here's a burger cooking on a grill. It happens to be a beef burger, but it could be a veggie burger. The question is, how did this burger get to Union South? Well, it came in a box. This box, a box of ground beef. Next, here's the truck that transported the box to the loading dock here in Union South. It came from Waterloo, Iowa, about 190 miles away. You can trace back further from the truck. And if you go back far enough, eventually you'll come to the animal that was the source of this burger. Like the burger, every food item served here in Union South came from somewhere. And you can trace back where it came from by a series of steps. We call this series of steps the food supply chain. As you can see, they're kind of complicated. So there are a couple things I can say to help you make sense of it. First, there are a lot of steps. You might get fewer if you produce the food yourself, but there's still going to be steps. Second, each one of the steps is accompanied by a greenhouse gas emission. Typically, the greenhouse gases we're talking about are carbon dioxide and methane. And third, the amount of greenhouse gas emissions produced by each step varies. In fact, can vary a lot for different foods. Your eating choices matter, both for your health and the health of the planet. And it's the greenhouse gas emissions that affect the health of the planet. Plant-based diets have the lowest emissions, and a meat-based diet, especially red meat, would have the highest. You don't have to become a vegetarian, but if you switch to more plants, whole grains, fruits, vegetables, this is a step in the direction of lowering your greenhouse gas emissions, accompanied by the food you eat. When you do eat meat, you might consider selecting chicken or turkey or pork. All of these have lower greenhouse emissions than red meat. With all the abundant food options we have, especially here in the Great Lakes region, there's lots you can choose from. Again, about eating and how it affects both your health and the health of the planet.
Got time for one more? 3 minutes? So that was one of the projects that our Environmental Studies 126 class looked at. And we're using that to help students, help educate them about the food that they eat. This last one is our internship program. Our interns got together and looked at the trash problem we have on campus. As I mentioned, that 9% reduction isn't good enough, and you'll see why. All right. Well, thank you for letting me share with those. You know, there are small little ways that we're trying to get the message out to our students, faculty, and staff. But it's amazing every time we talk about trash and recycling, and a lot of students don't even know, staff don't know. They just throw it. They think it goes to the same place, and so they don't really take it to heart. If you want to stay connected with us, here's our website. If you go there, just hit Stay Connected, and you enter your email, and you'll know about our events going on and get our newsletter. I just want to thank you all.